Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are here bringing freedom to potential. That's right. Coaching for relevance.com. Our dear friend, Randy Swaim. So much to say about him as a person, as an executive, as a coach, as a pilot. He's got a lot of ideas and a lot in that brain of his that is helping so many people succeed in business and
Well,
their
thank you.
personal lives and so much more. And I know we always talk about leadership being the key. That's one of many things that he helps people with. So, Randy, how's it going for you today?
Good, good. I'm looking forward to this, and it's always a pleasure to be on with you. And
Yay!
yeah, good deal.
Same here. So, anything new within the week that we need to catch up on before we begin?
Oh, well, I would just say that I was humbled that that the you may you're talking about the Hollywood movie documentary. You know, there was a little conclusion that's going to be attached at the end of the movie that was kind of like a just a short minute and a half little, sum up of the story and everything. Well, that was sent over to my colleague in Germany, and so not only are the AEMG people, marketing out there and getting the word out, um, but now they're going to be doing it through Europe and all that kind of stuff. And so, just humbled by where it all seems to be going. And as you know, December 14th is the date where they're going to start making it available to the public. So just kind of interesting with where it seems to be going.
Beautiful. Well, excited to hear about that. And of course, we'll keep you posted when that's going to air, where we could see it when it happens. He
Yeah.
also has an amazing book that's out in the meantime, Story of Your Life. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's been a great story, and I know the my autobiography and the movie both have the basic same title of bringing freedom to potential, because that's the biggest thing that has been relevant in my story, in my life, kind of thing. And the subtitle of basically a true story of overcoming and soaring above the storms in life. And uh, because not everything is just simple, not everything is just you know easy, kind of thing. But to really achieve and to really become, you know, um, what you're looking at. And actually, that's a little bit of a hint
Oh,
of
oh, oh.
one of the things that I'll talk about today. But it just that's the movie title of it. Bring freedom to potential. That's the same title for the autobiography book and also
Mm-hmm.
the movie. So it's I'm humbled by that, just the message that gets out, and also, you know, a few years down the road when I take my last breath, the fact that those are still out there, and not just for my name, but making a difference with some people, uh, for their benefit. Um, I am happy with that.
Well, so are we. Thank you so much.
You bet.
So modest. What do we have in store for today? Where are we starting? What are
Well,
we going to learn from you?
I'll tell you what. I'm going to mention one thing that a lot of people don't often think about,
Okay.
and I will just share this with you very quickly. That last Sunday morning, before the church started and all that sort of stuff, my friend and lead pastor walked up to me because he knew of my coaching and my leadership awareness and knowledge and all of that sort of stuff. And he pointed out that what he was going to bring was a central part of that. And he actually mentioned in the sermon one aspect about me and the flying that done and all that kind of stuff. And and I said, "Well, man, I'm humbled by that. You have my compliments." And it was a good message. But what I'm going to do today, I'm not going to bring the spiritual aspects of it, because that's not what I do
Yeah.
here. But I am going to bring some of the aspects that are centered in that, and and bring some things that sometimes people have to think. And this is very aligned with my concept that is trademarked for me out of Washington. That's organizational maneuverability, the idea of leading your teams and being successful in programs, in environments that are not all rote academic, kind of thing. when the unexpected things come on scene. So it's very aligned with all of that I'll bring today.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Let's get started. Randy, first and
Okay.
foremost, just so people know, you're in the Dallas area, correct?
Yep. Yep. Dallas Fort Worth area. Yep.
But worldwide with his expertise in coaching skills. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you, thank you. Well, I tell you what, it's good here, and if you want, we'll go ahead and get started here. And what I'm going to do here is just point this out, and I'm going to mention just one word, and then I'll kind of give a an aviation pilot sense of it as a picture. But then I'm going to give just a couple of things. Like I said, I'm not going to bring, I'm not going to bring a lot of spiritual stuff to it because it's leadership oriented, which is why the pastor kind of chatted with me on that because he knew it was and everything. But I'm going to focus it on leadership aspect and some things that we need to keep in mind when we're leading our teams and also when we're developing our teams. And so it's just something to think about. And what I will say is I'll give you this picture of an airplane because the central theme of this that we're going to be talking about today is a concept of drifting, you know. And I know the
Hmm.
uh the message that the pastor brought, the title of it was The Danger of Drifting. And you know what? That can be. And what I'll kind of throw out is this aspect that when you're talking about an airplane and the airplane is flying here, obviously you have some winds that are not all just aligned with the airplane. If you have some crosswinds that were like if I'm heading north here and the winds are coming from the west over here, guess what? Those winds are going to have a tendency to push the airplane over here. And so the pilot needs to basically adjust back a little bit to make sure she stays on the course that they need. But also, if the winds are coming from the east over here, just the opposite can be true. And so when you talk about it, if all you're doing is going with the rote stuff, you could be off of what you're really trying to accomplish. And it's just something to think about. But that's a little bit of a picture of drifting. If you're not making the right heading so that you're flying on exactly the course you need to fly on, what you're doing is you're letting the airplane drift and you're letting it drift off, and that can be bad, you know, um, kind of thing. So it's just something to think about, and it's one aspect of it. But when you think about this aspect of drifting, you um, you have to understand that it's not something that's obvious, and it's not something that a lot of people think about. A lot of people think just in terms of, well, making excuses for why it's not doing what they want it to do. That's not what you want. But I'll just share a couple of insights that the pastor kind of supplied there.
Sure.
I'm not going to really bring it into a lot of spiritual stuff. I'm going to bring it into just the leadership aspect and all this when you're talking about uh, in certain things. But one of the things that the pastor mentioned that was a truth, and it sounds like this. He was putting it in a little bit of a spiritual aspect of it, but he said, You never drift toward goodness, you drift toward wickedness." And you know what?
Interesting.
When you're drifting, you're probably not drifting where you want to be. You're drifting off and away from where you need to be. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the idea of that when you're talking about leading your team in a challenging situation. And he also, and I'm just going to mention this, and then we're going to kind of get into this a little bit more. But he mentioned four danger signs of drifting away, and I'll just sort of mention that very quickly. He said, and he said God's word, but it could be just truth. I'll just use the word truth on this.
Of
But he
course.
said, "I drift away when I listen to truth, but my life doesn't change." If I listen to truth, but I'm
Uh-huh.
not adjusting my
Justin.
decisions, my making, my strategy, and all that kind of stuff, that can be a danger sign of drifting away if I'm just letting that go aside, kind of thing. The second thing that he brought up,
Yeah.
he, he said, "I drift away when apathy replaces a desire to gather with believers, or in other words, team members, people that are aligned, people that we want to work together, and things like
Okay.
that. It says, I drift away when apathy replaces a desire to do that. Okay. And the third point, he put 4 danger signs. One is, and it was interesting because he said, I drift away when complacency
Yeah.
replaces confession. If I don't admit to what I just let happen and correct it, it's a bad thing, kind of thing. And I'm letting it sort of just drift away from that airplane. I'm letting it just drift over here without doing anything, kind of thing. And then the fourth thing that he brought out was, I drift away when I forget. And this is a good point. I drift away when I forget that ending well is more important than a good start. And those are just some of the things that are good in this aspect of the drift and all of that kind of stuff. And like I say,
Wow.
the when you're talking about leading your team, there's a lot of cases where I have seen people and heard of people that just made excuses for why it wasn't doing what they wanted. Well, guess what? You have to know what you need to do to adjust to go back to it, kind of thing. And the other thing is, a lot of people sort of have a mindset that when you're talking about something drifting away from what you're trying to do, it all sort of goes this way to this particular cause. Guess what? Maybe not. There
Hmm.
may be a whole cause on this other side,
Yeah.
and it may be going there, or if you're correcting back, it may cross and go over there. And so when you're talking about this aspect of drifting, if people are just kind of leaving their mind shut and not doing anything with it and just making assumptions, that is hugely not right. And so when you are leading your team, are you aware of when something is
Yeah.
drifting a little bit, and why? And what do you need to do about it? Doesn't mean you just point fingers and threaten people and dictate to them, but you connect with people in such a way that when you're aware of that, you can bring clarity to it and make it work, and get it back where you want. And the other part that I'll throw out to this is, it's interesting. Most people say, well, if I'm just a little bit off of where I want to go, that's screwed up. Well, who knows? Maybe not. Because here's the thing, it may be, and this is what sometimes people don't really think about, it may be that if it's getting off here, there may be an aspect when an unexpected factor comes on scene that I did not expect, that unexpected factor. When that comes on scene, it could be moving this, and it may be that I have to go, nope, not going to let that move it. Or what you might find accidentally and unexpectedly is that it moves you into a slightly different position
Hmm.
where you can reach the success quicker and easier that you didn't think about beforehand. Maybe. Again, no guarantee of it. Depends. Could be tough, could be challenging, could be something that's not easy. But when you think about this whole concept of drifting and being aware of it, and this is something that a lot of people really don't even think about so much. They make excuses if it starts to drift a little bit, but to at what point do you have clarity, and does your team have clarity on when it's starting to happen, and is that a benefit or not? If not, let's bring it back. But also, what do you need to watch out for? What kind of factors, unexpected factors, can come on scene that you would not have considered, you didn't even think about?
Yeah.
um, and if you think about it, if it does tweak, maybe it pulls it this way a little bit, and you find out that, oh, you know what? Whoa, that gets me right to our success point quicker than I expected to, possibly. Oh, wow, kind of thing, maybe. And so when you think about it, it's a deeper level of vision, thinking, assessment, mental processing, and all of that. It's a deeper level of doing that than just playing an academic game, but also what is your purpose? And is your team aware of some of that also, possibly? And and so it's just something to think about when you're actually, you know, thinking about this aspect of drifting. 9 times out of 10, if either you or your team are drifting mentally, or your particular part of your organization that you're in charge of is
Mm-hmm.
drifting and in a different direction. What's causing it? What do you need to do about it? And again, it's overly simplistic if you just say, well, just turn back that way. Well, yeah, okay, that may be part of it.
Yeah.
But when they're back on the the course line that you wanted, if like with the airplane, how are they going to be aware if that starts to happen again, or if it starts to happen in the other direction? Are they going to truly be aware of those kind of things? And so it's just something to think about, that when you think of the concept of drifting, it's not something that's just simplistic. It's not something that, well, you know what, it'll do that sometimes and we'll just correct back, kind of thing. No, it's something, be aware of it, because when you're talking about, or when you start to see a certain bit of drifting, and let's face it, and Jill, you probably know this too, just from people that you've met and dealt with and stuff. But guess what? In an individual life, there are times when people were drifting when they didn't need to be, and
True.
weren't even aware of it, kind of thing. And and so when you're talking about your team and all of this happening from a leadership standpoint, what is your real clarity as a leader?
Yeah.
And what are you really going to do to connect with your people in such a way that an amazing result can come out of that? And it doesn't mean that the drifting needs to be the right thing. It may be something different. Here's a challenging thing. If 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 you're on this course line on your goal, guess what? And if your team ends up drifting off this way, it may be that if they drifted back here and off this way just a little bit, that gets them there quicker and more successfully, possibly. It totally depends. But the bottom line is, when you're thinking about this aspect of the drifting and all, it's just very key to understand some of that aspect about it. And if you think about it, on those four danger signs, the last one, I drift away when I forget that ending well is more
Mm-hmm.
important than good start. If all you're doing is think,
Oh, Randy. No. No. Lost ya. Froze ya. All right, we lost our guest, but hopefully he'll be back momentarily. Randy Swaim, if you are with us, Coaching for Relevance is the name of his company, and true, he is been here, with the show for so long. We've gotten to
oh,
and Randy. I hope again, Randy Swaim, you joining us? There you go.
okay, but
He is back. I was like, well,
okay.
let me start talking till we get him back. All right, go ahead, sweetheart.
Okay, and really, that's just what I was saying. What I was saying toward the end there,
Drifting. We're drifting off air. No.
yeah, and it was a little bit. You found what we needed. So, but the bottom line is, when you're talking about drifting here, in any organization, in any a strategy and strategic aspect that you have with you and your family, with you and your team, with you and whatever, are you aware of when it's starting to drift? And as I mentioned at the beginning here, are you aware of basically those four danger signs of the drifting away? Um, and so it's just something to think about when you're talking about that. Um, and again, I brought it just to the leadership aspects of it. And that's why the pastor was very appreciative of having a chat with me before before the church started and everything, because he knew that it was very aligned with not what I talked to him about, but just with my experience with what I do and all that kind of stuff. So, um, but uh, but this aspect of drifting, when you're talking about really moving in this direction to achieve this, to grow and become this, or whatever, the big thing on this is you have to have the ability to be able to understand to what extent are you seeing some drifting happen and what are you going to do about it. And that's something that, so many people in today's world have a tendency that if it starts to drift a little bit, they just make excuses and try to blame somebody else or something else. That's not doing it. you know you got to see what you mean. If you're flying that airplane and it blows off because of wind and it drifts off to the right a little bit, guess what? You need to bring it back and set a heading that allows the airplane to make up for that wind, and so that it stays on the course that you want it to be on. And so it's kind of a good airplane picture of it. But it's something to think about when you kind of bring in this whole aspect of drifting and being aware of it and having clarity on it. And as a team lead, first of all, I would say, what are you going to do about it? But secondly, I would say, how are you developing your team members so that when you're not there, if that drifting starts to happen, they can adjust accordingly and successfully, even if you're not there, kind of thing. And when you talk about leading and developing your team, that can be part of it. And there's a lot of ways where that can kind of play in. But it's just something to think about that, like I said, the drifting is not something that's very simple, just, oh, it's just that. No, drifting happens when something negative is there, and 9 times out of 10, it's with your people. And the one thing that I'll also throw out is this aspect of when you're talking about the drifting that can happen, that can be because of something that you're not experiencing or whatever. It could be something you didn't know about or didn't have attention on. But the drifting could also happen when your brain doesn't have the thinking and the vision that it needs. It could be that it's something that is problematic in what your team is doing with the whatever, but it could be something that one person or a couple of them, their brain is not even aware of what may be causing it, what's missing. And here's the thing: if your thought process, and this is one of the things that um, the guy mentioned, um, again, you never drift toward goodness, you drift toward wickedness,
Yeah,
kind of
it's
thing is
interesting you
what he
say that.
said.
It's true.
And it
Yeah.
and it in your mind,
Hmm.
if your mind is missing things,
Oh, yeah.
that drifting could be happen because you're not thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to have to do that?
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is just go about the business of blaming it on other people, because
Yeah.
guess what? That's not going to get you there. And but this whole aspect of drifting is a key aspect in leadership, particularly in an organizational maneuverability concept, where
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the factors that are going to come on scene in your journey there are unexpected. You didn't necessarily expect them. They could be coming from some source that you weren't even aware. And at takeoff in an airplane or at takeoff in your operation, it could be they weren't even in the vicinity. They may be coming on up there somewhere, kind of thing. And so just having some real all of that is part of the strategic vision, the strategic awareness, the mental processing ability, the clarity on what you're trying to accomplish, but also the clarity on the unity of your team and your team members and all of that kind of stuff. So all of that is what this kind of comes into play. But just realize that the drifting only happens when there's something negative. And literally when the thing it's starting to drift,
Mm-hmm.
probably 99 times out of 100, it's going in a direction that's not good.
Mm-mm. It's wicked. Yes.
Yeah, and so just something to think about on that when you're talking about. So just bring in one aspect about leadership and challenging situations and things like that. Just something that people need to think about. Make sure that on your strategy, your goal,
Mm-hmm.
and all that you're seeking to accomplish, uh, make sure your focus is on how you're going to end well, not just
Yep.
start well and all that, but also are you going to be aware of if it starts to drift a little bit, and how are you going to know that, and what are you going to do? And
Mm-hmm.
so all of those are just aspects about this aspect of leadership when you're talking about it.
Beautiful. Thank you. We still got more time though. So what else do you want to add? We got 4 minutes left in your show. Randy, and
Well,
he's
I tell
always
you,
on
well, I
fire. Go
tell you what.
ahead.
Let me ask you this: do you have any
Good.
questions
No,
on that?
you
I
always bring
guess
up
I explained it well.
you always do. And then I come up with a question and it's like, I really kind of know the answer. No, I'm good. This is, it's true. But it's so funny you say that towards wickedness we go. We don't drift towards positive and good. Is that like just an innate quality in most people though? Like why? Yeah, we're drifting to the dark side. We drift. Yeah. I mean, why don't we drift
Yep.
more on a positive side? Is it just not possible? Our
Yeah.
brains, our
Well,
bodies, like pull
well,
away. Like, how would you?
what I would say on that, and that's a good question. But the bottom line is, in order to go to a positive thing,
Yeah.
guess what? That takes your processing, awareness, clarity, and your decisions on what to do and how to get there.
Yeah.
What you got to realize is that when you're talking about drifting, that's one thing
Hmm.
that's just very passive.
Yeah.
It's not something you did, it's something that you're not being aware of when it's doing it, perhaps, or you're not doing what's needed to keep it from doing that. And so with what you're talking about, you're right. The drifting can go either direction.
Uh,
But you know what? The bottom line is, that's why I said earlier, it's not the plan, but guess
mm-hmm.
what? What you might find out, and this is not something that's going to happen in every situation, but you might find out that if it ends up drifting to the left a little bit, you may find out that, oh, you know what? Oh, I didn't realize this, but boy, that's in a better place to get where I'm going, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it's, if you're in a mountainous area, guess what? If it
What?
drifts to the left, now
Yeah.
hopefully you flew it to the left, but if it drifts to the left, maybe it goes into a valley area where you got some space there to be able to do what you need to do. Who knows? I'm just giving one example, but the bottom line is, as a leader, this aspect of the drift and the negative aspects of drift on this, and the danger of drifting. You have to realize the danger is not just you're going to enter over here, you're going to hit something or whatever. No, the danger of it, when your team is drifting, the danger of it is probably somebody's not thinking, somebody's not mentally processing, somebody's not aware, somebody's not making it happen. They're not making that aspect, with an airplane, if it's drifting this way, guess what? Somebody's got to turn the airplane back
Oh gosh, yeah.
so that you get here and account for the winds. And a lot of times what you can do is that the scenario may be happening such that you don't have any real clarity on the factors that are happening. And well, it's, whatever. And so it's the real key danger is expressed in a number of those little things that I brought out. But when you're talking about real the danger of drifting, guess what? 9 times out of 10, it's because you weren't aware, your team wasn't aware, something wasn't aware, but you're not making the immediate things to account for it. And so it's just something like with an airplane. If you're coming into land and
Mm.
the winds are over this way, when you come into land, what you need to do with, make the heading and make it all come down and land on the runway just perfect. And that's the prior, that's the prior awareness and all of that. But when you're talking about what we're talking about here with the team, guess what? If you see some drifting happening, 9 times out of 10, there's certain things your team's not thinking, not aware of, don't have clarity on, not doing, and maybe something that you don't have any of that on right now. And so it's just something to think about that if you ever run a little bit of a risk of drifting out there, what do you need to do as a leader? What do you need to do? But also, what do you need to grow in your team and
Wow.
stuff? And so it's just something to think about.
Thank you very much for that. And how can we contact you if we would like to?
Well, as you know, you can go to my website, Coaching for Relevance, and at the bottom of the homepage, it has my email and my cell phone on it. And if you give me a call, as you know, Jill, I don't do cold, I don't do
Reach
cold
out.
calls or
Nope,
anything
nope,
like that.
nope.
So if somebody has a need, yeah, we'll come up with something. But if somebody just wants to have a chat, they don't need to worry about me trying to give them sales pitches or anything like that, because I'll just have a chat with them, and that'll be good.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Randy. And looking forward to next time. As always, enjoy the week. And is it cooling down yet in Texas or no?
It's still a nice temperature. I think it's cooled down to 81 today in my house. So
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well,
yeah.
enjoy.
So that's
I'd
pretty
say
good.
enjoy the fall weather, but enjoy the cool down a little bit.
There you
And
go.
we'll talk next week. Thanks so much. And thank you again for being here and our professional of the year. Bye bye, Randy.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.